What is auto-hoaxing? Auto-hoaxing is the skeptical methodology for dissecting media-driven events, assuming these to be potentially fabricated until proven otherwise. It's not about denying reality, but challenging the burden of proof placed on the public by what media critics see as a deceptive psyop entertainment complex. Auto-hoaxing is a skeptical lens to see through scripted news events disguised as reality, emphasizing skepticism over blind acceptance. Applied skepticism. It's a systematic doubt applied to media claims, especially sensational ones like shootings or disasters, which media skeptics argue are fakeable and thus suspect. Unlike traditional conspiracy theories pinning events on specific actors and disagreeing upon which scapegoat is the correct one, auto-hoaxers view them as staged propaganda events, produced and performed by a unified government and media, not necessarily tied to specific culprits on one side of the political spectrum or the other. The label auto-hoaxer was a pejorative by conspiracy theorists to attack those suspicious of the media to the point of calling events fake. The thing is, auto-hoaxers were proven correct so many times, they could not be shamed into silence by conspiracy theorists alarmed at their insensitivity to the victims, alleged to be crisis actors. Auto-hoaxing is an active process or practice treating media events as hoaxes by default until factual evidence demonstrates otherwise. It's a mindset shift from auto-believing, accepting news at face value, to questioning everything, especially when evidence is second-hand or unverifiable. It serves as a defense against psychological operations, their default stance. If an event can be faked, via CGI, actors, or scripting, it's considered fake until proven real, flipping the burden of proof onto the media. Specifically, fake until proven real if certain criteria are met. Skeptics do not call everything fake. Our assertion is that fake or simulated events are presented to the world as real for propaganda purposes. Knowing this, the burden of proof question must be carefully considered. Even if I cannot immediately identify anything inauthentic about a piece of footage or a breaking headline, I'll still take time to look at the broader context and other footage and reportage before judging. Auto-hoaxing as media deconstruction. It involves breaking down news for signs of staging without assuming a who behind it. The analysis is not focused on seeking a culprit, but rather studying the event itself for indications of fabrication. The scapegoat narratives are predicated on the event's assumed authenticity. The skeptic must establish something happened first. This approach to consuming media leads to emotional detachment from the onslaught of headlines demanding our immediate attention. An auto-hoaxer is someone who adopts this philosophy, actively questioning media narratives rather than theorizing alternative culprits. They're not just skeptics but practitioners of a disciplined disbelief, often vilified as disaster trolls by mainstream pundits. How auto-hoaxers compare to conspiracy theorists? They view mainstream media as a monolithic entity, pushing myths along with facts. Working as a network, auto-hoaxers engage in live deconstructions of media-reported events, rejecting the predictable knee-jerk alt-media conspiracies. Unlike those speculating on who did it, e.g., Mossad or CIA, auto-hoaxers focus on what happened. To preemptively assume the event was real, along with whatever convenient scapegoat is provided, is to risk chasing a red herring, a false lead whose intended purpose is to lead one away from considering the event was fake. Conspiracy theorists habitually reject the mainstream version of events, while automatically adopting the popular alternative takes. Their stances are more reflexive rather than skeptical. Conspiracy theorists are quick to disbelieve the mainstream and quick to believe the alternative. Auto-hoaxers suspend judgment and pause before believing and disbelieving. Believer versus knower, the auto-hoaxer's distinction, the skeptic auto-hoaxer. An auto-hoaxer requires evidence for claims made by a pathologically lying media, especially when those claims are extraordinary. This means investigating, fact-finding, and examining events critically. Often, conclusions cannot be reached immediately, so the auto-hoaxer must suspend judgment and resist overreacting to televised news. The non-skeptic auto-believer. An auto-believer assumes what is televised is true. They believe hoaxes or fake news would be exposed by reporters, unaware that in the case of psychological operations, journalists can be part of the production itself. They imagine reporters as passive observers rather than active participants in staging events. Skilled liars don't lie constantly, but strategically, and only to those who already trust them. A psyop is simply a lie presented as reality. A staged play reinforced by scripted statements to prop up a false narrative. The media is a skilled liar. It presents reality faithfully enough that there's a built-in assumption that it presents a window to the world, rather than a distorting filter. Auto-believers misunderstand the nature of mainstream media, its centralization, its use of publicity stunts, perception management, and worldview warfare disguised as entertainment. They trust their news sources, assuming a vetting process filters out fakery. This imagined safeguard replaces critical thinking, and this outsourcing of the intellectual work leaves them vulnerable to manipulation. With so many competing networks and too much information to process, most people outsource their intelligence gathering. The result is a gap between known facts and accepted beliefs. Media consumers have been transformed into members of a faith-based belief system. While political opinions differ, they still operate within the same basic, media-defined reality. Belief systems are acquired through social contagion, tradition, ideology, peer pressure, or passive acceptance of the default narrative, rather than direct knowledge. Worse, seeking knowledge rather than accepting beliefs is stigmatized, with dissenters labeled conspiracy theorists or purveyors of misinformation. Conspiracy theorists, doing their own research, have the right intentions. Their error is in assuming the alternative answers are any more reliable than the mainstream ones. If you find this subject interesting, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear the rest of the series, the IPSD program, a skeptic's guide to the theater of Psywar and IPS production.